Welcome to Josh's House of Nerd podcast.
Good morning, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. If this is your first time to the podcast, we'd like to... I'm screwing this up. If this is your first time to the podcast, well, we are glad that you found us. Now for tonight's sponsor. Do you like perfection? Do you like animals? Do you like food? Well, introducing Yappy's Cat Food for the perfect meal for that perfect cat. Now with real tuna and liver taste with a hint of cheese. Yappy's Cat Food for animal lovers who like perfection. There we go. Holy crap, I've never had such a hard time with one before.
Oof, you got a lot of work to do on that one.
My goodness, I had perfection in there, and then I was doing the riff off of UHF, and I was, which is dog food instead of cat food in that one. Oh my goodness. Thanks for hanging in there with me, guys.
Of course.
All right. Today on the podcast, we are on the topic for the month of June, which is Utopian or Dystopian movies. This week, we're talking about John's pick, the 1977 movie, 1997 movie Gattaca from director Andrew Niccol, who has also done The Truman Show and the movie In Time. This movie this week is about a genetically inferior man who assumes the identity of a superior one in order to pursue his lifelong dream of space travel, starring Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law, Tony Shalhoub, Alan Arkin, Gore Vidal, and Ernest Borgnine. For all you Airwolf people out there. Let's talk about the movie. I love this movie, guys. I'm so glad, John, that you picked it. Because as you said a little earlier that, I had picked it. And I'm so glad that it came back to me so that we could watch it.
So, did you think that this was a utopian or dystopian movie?
I screw the two up, so I'm going to have Josh go first so that I can make sure I have the right.
Utopian.
Do you think this is a utopian movie?
Well, yeah, they're kind of living in it. Well,
No, it's dystopian.
Why would it be dystopian?
Because it is relating or denoting to imagined state or society where there's great suffering or injustice.
Oh, you looked it up?
I looked it up, man. And there is great suffering and injustice.
Well, is there great suffering?
Well, there's great injustice,
Well, I mean, to a degree, yes. It's an interesting topic whether or not Gattaca actually is dystopian or not, because for the general society, there's the depiction of two classes, obviously, right?
Right.
But there's also health and wellness and everything else is general society seems to be at least, more functional, maybe with some really stupid rules, but, definitely. I don't know. I mean, I think you could make a point or at least try to make a case that it might be utopian.
I mean, I would have thought it was utopian in the sense that, and I've always thought of utopian as, where they have everything as such, everything seems good on the surface, but there's always those underpinnings of, control and
I guess whether it comes down to whether you think utopian means perfection.
Mm-hmm. I've always thought of it as well, the word itself, I've always thought of as perfection. But if I think about it in like a utopian movie, I always think of it as like an attempted perfection that seems to always have, it seems to always like backfire. It seems like in any movie that comes up.
I would add to that a very, like an extremely large majority live in a very, idealistic and happy environment. And I think it wouldn't apply to Gattaca because obviously it does not apply. I mean, they make it seem like it's not a half and half thing. They make it seem like the valids are a lot sometimes less, and then they're trying to genetically alter them. I guess eventually, as they genetically alter out all of the invalids, supposedly it would become a utopia. Maybe it's like it's a shifting from a dystopia, going through like its goth phase, so to speak, until it becomes a full blown utopian society.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
Possibly.
saying it's maybe an in transition type thing to that. Is that what you're kind of saying? It's in transition to dystopian
Yeah,
or
maybe.
utopian.
Well, yeah. I think, yeah, it's an interesting definition problem, which we didn't really discuss last week in the previous movie, but like this idea that there's this common saying that's like the perfect is the enemy of good. So it's like any attempt to create a utopian society would create a dystopian one just by attempting to do it.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I even said when I think of utopian, I think of it in the movie sense as an attempt at perfection that never seems to ever be accomplished.
Right.
I mean, you think a lot of like Logan's Run, or they thought in Logan's Run that they were in some kind of a perfect society, but nobody knew what happened when they died at Carousel.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you guys follow that, but
yeah,
that's and once they found out that they were actually at Carousel dying, it's that whole kind of backside of it. Hey, we're in a perfect society, but is there something fishy behind the scenes?
Well, I mean,
there seems to always be.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying that I was going to say that the interesting thing about Gattaca is, I mean, do you think there is? We have performance testing for astronauts, right? Like we don't let just anybody get into the process. Now we don't have, as far as I know, genetic marker testing. We just have performance testing and general health checkups and everything like that. And this is the entire movie is kind of based off of like probabilities. It's like, oh well, based on your genetic markers, we think that you'll have these high likely probabilities and stuff like that. And yeah, it sucks to be basically told this is what your future is from your as a probability. Then that probability is an actuality because of the way the companies work. And that might be the more interesting approach to dystopian, is that it feels like it's very corporate centric. So the Gattaca is not a government; it's a company, I believe.
Well, I don't know if it is a company, but they also showed throughout the movie though that it was kind of everywhere. Because remember when they were trying to put him in school? Yeah, it wasn't just a government. It was government. It was in every every facet of society.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're saying is like there should be no testing for genetic markers on lots of those things, but most people, he was saying in the voiceover that nobody really pays attention to that law because they can basically just do some under the counter testing on it, and it wasn't the government that stopped them from getting into preschool. It was the insurance company wouldn't insure the child for
that's a good point.
Safety, right? Like it's not so much that you have like a dictatorial government stopping opportunity from happening. What you have is limits and liabilities placed by society because the technology is there to actually see these probabilities. And that it's kind of an interesting approach.
It's kind of an idea in another Thurman movie, which I'll put out there, Paycheck. I think we're on 2 now that we brought up of catch-up movies maybe, but in Paycheck they kind of go into something real similar to that of predestined, or they say that they're seeing the future, but it's actually the future that they're seeing actually is causing what's in the present. And it almost feels like that, hey, it's like, yeah, you might have these genetic markers, yeah, you might not be perfect, but it's almost predestining these people to be the way that they are in society, the way that they're treated in society, so as being low lives and so on.
So what I struggle a little bit with Gattaca is because the movie's trying to say, this is, to me, it's kind of giving you the impression that this is wrong and look what society comes to and all that. And I agree mostly with that, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. But what kind of gets to me is that if we're sending an astronaut out to Saturn's moon of Titan, where the massive chances for failure, there's technical failure, there's personal failure, in this particular case, I would do everything necessary to ensure that the astronauts going on this are going to be the top, specimen, so to speak, in order to make this mission successful. And I think that's a good thing because it's such a challenging mission. It's such a, there's so much that could go wrong. I we do that already with our astronauts, like Crit brought up. We don't genetically test them, but man, do we do everything else. If somebody, had, I can't remember what it was somebody had like a minor surgery and that totally disqualified them from going because of potential issues. And so it's kind of hard because the whole instance that Gattaca's using to as kind of the focal point is one instance where I'm like, it's probably not a bad idea here, to make sure that this is actually successful. I don't know that I have a problem with this.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, which is that whole idea of, well, this is one man's dream, and his dream is to go into space, and the system is set against him. Like that's the plot of the movie, that's the framing of the movie. But when you step back and think about, a 70-year window, or 70 years between windows of being able to launch this thing to get out to the moon correctly and stuff like that. Like, okay, in one instance, he's somewhat earned his seat because he went through all the testing, except that he did cheat on some of those tests, right? Like the whole thing with the treadmill.
Well, he wasn't
and
even
his
supposed
heart's
to be
going
there.
nuts.
I mean, that was the cheating part.
I don't know about the whole not supposed to be there thing. That kind of reaches back into the, does your genetics dictate? Should your genetics dictate your future?
I'm just saying, by the rules of this
effort?
show, he shouldn't have even belonged.
I know, but I'm saying that even beyond that, by our own moral standards, he cheated on physical tests.
Yeah.
He actually does have at least some aspect of where he's running for 20 minutes and his heart is going nuts, and you're going to send that guy up in the thing. So it's like,
yeah, it's not even a probability. He literally has a heart condition. Yeah.
And so like, he's going to be on this mission for, I guess, the next year. And it's like, okay, fine. He earned it he worked hard at it, but from a purely objective standpoint, he's not the correct person to go.
No,
because if he hadn't have physically, like all the stuff he did to cheat the genetic tests and everything else like that, I think those don't matter in his capability, because he knows, at least the movie's saying, he knows the subject matter so well. He's memorized an older version of the navigation books. He's got the best scores when they're actually testing their people. He earned that spot through his smarts, but there's obviously a physical toll, that's going to be expected by them. And he absolutely cheated on that, cheated regardless of what their rules are. He falsified his physical capabilities, and that puts the entire mission at jeopardy. So
that's true. I don't deny that at all. Like, he probably shouldn't have gone. I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you said. Did he earn it? Sure. But like in the real world terms and stuff like that, should he have been on there because of his physical limitations? The only thing, clearly he had heart limitations, but one thing that they kept kind of focusing on also that I noticed was that it was the potential. They didn't really know if it was really going to happen, but like going back to what you're talking about earlier, statistics and stuff like that, they focused on that a little bit too much of, well, somebody could have an issue, but it's never come up, but they could. Clearly he had a heart condition. He shouldn't have been there, but it seemed like they did throughout this society focus on those maybes a lot.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, and I think that's where Gattaca starts touching on class. It's like, if you get rid of class, like say you get rid of racial stereotypes around class or monetary stereotypes around class, a new technology will just create a new class, and you'll still have the same class dynamics. It'll just be on a different subject matter.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. I think it's natural. I don't know if it's natural to humanity or whatever, but it seems like there's always seems to have been that way throughout history. There's different classes, And this is just a more modern, I guess, speaking to that.
Yeah.
That's interesting though, that to talk about, like, if you took away this and you put something else in the place, how there will always be something, some kind of class structure that will come out of it somehow.
Yeah.
Even though, like, coming away from, like, Great Britain and stuff like that, we were trying to run away, from a lot of that, like, you had to be a lord to own land and stuff like that, kind of class stuff.
Yeah, we just called them different things here in the U.S.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We just put different labels on them.
We explicitly said landowners. We just didn't call them lords anymore, but they were just landowners. It's the same thing.
Right. But it seems like we can never run away from that, definitely.
Yeah, it's almost like human society craves hierarchy. And due to that craving, we will create hierarchy when there is none. I mean, that's what racism is for the most part, or race purity, or any of that odious ideology, is this idea of hierarchy, that some people are better than others, and that some people deserve to lead and other people deserve to follow. Like, that's the best they can be, is follow and workers and everything else like that. And it's interesting because it's like all sci-fi, Gattaca's trying to shift the narrative to kind of genetics. I think it's also playing a little bit of a boogeyman, like the future society is going to be based around genetics and like your own personal work ethic, which, by how the movie's framing it, is saying that your work ethic is not related to your genetics. Like, they're just saying that. Now, it might be true, that free will gives you the ability to work hard even if your genetics are against you. That's not really a genetic, it's not like an epigenetic trait or something. But that's kind of where the movie frames this whole plot, in that idea. And then we basically stratify across it with class and just say, okay, well, if you have good genetics, which always brings up the question of who gets to define good.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a plausible system for creating an underclass. Because at that point in time, it's like, hey, it's out of my hands. It's just genetics. I'm just running the test. The test tells me there's a 99% probability that you won't live past 32. It's like, okay, that's, so who's going to bet on you? Because every capitalistic system that uses, people's labor in order to move their goals forward, well, every person they hire for that job is a bet. I bet that you're going to stay long enough to do the job and do the job well.
And how do they bet on those people? How are they placing that bet? They usually have some kind of knowledge of previous experience or things like that. Yeah.
But if society just goes, no, it's kind of okay just to look at your genetics, and your genetics have all these probabilities built into them, and oh, by the way, we can tweak them if you have enough money or the access, then that's something we definitely need to talk about too, is, given their society and how they are set up, you're just a person in that society. Would you genetically engineer your children to have a better life?
That's a good question. Wow. That's a tough one.
No, I would. If I could afford it, and that's what society was at the time, I feel like it'd be part of it. It'd be almost the same as making sure I get them regular checkups as a baby to make sure they get their vaccinations. Like, if the technology exists and is available and is effective to, weed out disease, weed out and all that, like, I could see using it.
Picking fertilized eggs.
That's a little bit of a gray area for me right there. That would be a tough one. Yes.
Yeah, because they fertilized 4 eggs and they could pick one of them.
Yep.
And it's like, and then on top of that, like, they kind of touched on this when they asked Vincent's dad. It's like, well, we have all these, we've done all the usual things with disease and everything else like that, but we could also do this and this and this. And, the mother's kind of, well, and even the dad is like,
we have to engineer everything?
We have to go? Yeah, exactly. Do we have to go, can we leave a little bit of chance in there? And that raises the question, how far do you go?
Well, I look at it as, okay, if I could get past that first thing of what you're saying, the fertilized embryos and all that stuff. Okay.
No, they're not embryos, they're eggs.
Or
They're eggs,
eggs.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
things.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So,
I mean, I guess they're different things. It depends on where you stand on that.
right. If I were to like engineer my, kids, I think I would go as far as, I would want to probably engineer them to the sense of, I wouldn't want them to have any genetic diseases or anything that could weed out of a disease. I would want to do that. I would want them to have, good vision, things like that, like the basics.
Be a little taller. Maybe have a propensity to a high enough metabolism where they could be more active.
Right. I mean, how far do you go? Yeah. And
Exactly.
I know what you're saying. And I think I would only want to go as far as the first two I said, and then, kind of let the rest of it be the rest it is. But I could see the allure of, well, if I'm just doing these things, why wouldn't I just, if it's the same cost or whatever, why would I not go the full, do everything? Why would I not make them taller? Why would I not make them genetically skinny or, or physically, fit?
Let's up the stakes a little bit then. Let's say you couldn't afford it, at least with your current thing, but if you made some sacrifices, you could. How many sacrifices would you make to give your child the gold deluxe package? Like how far would you go? Live in a smaller house, have a crappier car, work longer hours.
Sure.
I'd go pretty
into
decent.
major
I'd go
amounts
pretty
of
far.
debt.
Major amounts of debts, I'd struggle with that one. But I'd
major amounts of
go
debt,
fairly far to make that a reality.
Okay.
I think I would too.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess the other question comes then is how important is the body? Because nothing says that the adjustments of the body changes
the mind. Yeah. And I think that's
disposition, or
that's why I don't have as many issues with it, because I don't believe that I'm going to be. I mean, I know it has some impact, and it's definitely going to change, brain chemistry and all that jazz. But my beliefs isn't necessarily going to be, I'm erasing who my kid could be, and building this robot in their place, or who they are.
Yeah. I mean, you're not making a robot, but it depends on how much you think your personality is based upon overcoming maybe physical or environmental difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take away all possible difficulties, even just like eyesight issues and stuff like that, where people don't have to wear glasses or can contemplate LASIK later or whatever else, you are effectively erasing that person. And also, what about the homogenization of the human race? There won't be too many differences if everybody. Let's assume.
Well,
it's
they
a
even
utopian
kind
setup.
of, they even pointed at that a little bit when he said in that one part, well, what about if you're a different, what if you're not American or whatever? And he said, it doesn't matter where you come from as long as your genetics are what they're looking for.
Well, and in that sense, that's kind of nice, I guess, because nationality is a really weird segment to kind of fixate on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, the difference between myself here in the U.S. and a person in South America doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter, except for communication, which is something that can be learned. Like, we just communicate differently in different languages, but
it is amazing no matter where you go how similar people are. Absolutely.
Well, the genetic diversity between humans is less than two different groups of chimps in the Congo.
Yeah,
like way less.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole idea that somehow there's a huge genetic diversity in humans is wrong. There's very surface level differences between people around the world.
Yeah, I agree. Genetically speaking, they're very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
Huh. That's crazy to think about. That's when it's your own kids, your own family. It's like with all of what you've been saying, it's kind of hard to say, well, I wouldn't do that. But
Mhm.
I also wouldn't want to do it enough that I would, like John was saying, just kind of to change them enough. And I guess the more minimal, I mean, okay, we can do a lot of this. We can actually do some of this already. I mean, they
Mm,
have the new technologies called CRISPR and a lot
yeah,
of
but
these
that's
newer.
not available
It's not.
to
But
anybody
what
really,
I'm saying is they're not
practically.
that far away in some ways
No,
of being
they're
able to
not far
do
away.
stuff like that.
Yep.
And you want to make sure that they're taken care of enough. But I think if I was going to do it, I would probably want to do it a minimal amount at this point in time. Maybe
Why?
not take away from them as little as possible, and make just maybe like attributes a little bit nicer rather than But hopefully, everything else comes out all right.
Well, then I guess that one of the thought experiments is that at that point in time, your children become fashion.
Yeah.
Because then you are each generation after the invention of the technology and the distribution of it to a certain point where most people can get to it. When you're able to pick features that aren't necessarily purely medical in nature, now you're talking about fashion. You're
Yeah.
talking about desirability of certain builds, which
Mhm.
have changed over written history. As
Absolutely.
far as like what type of features are desirable in our civilization,
Mm-hmm.
and do we want our children dictated by fashion in that way?
Absolutely not. No, and you could. I mean, it's funny you say that fashion. You almost there was almost they didn't really call it out in the movie that much, but you could almost tell that it was kind of the way they talked about different things, that it was kind of a like a trend thing, like, oh, they're gonna immediately notice you if you have glasses, or because nobody has
Mm-hmm.
glasses now,
Right. Yeah.
and things like that. So now, yeah, glasses become like an inhibitor into society,
Mm-hmm.
and you won't fit in anymore. So I could see that, yeah. And I could see that, where people, if that starts to be a trend and people can start affording it, I guarantee that a lot of people, not all, I know there's never going to be all, but a lot of people will go to that way of fixing some of those like cosmetic things.
Yeah, it just depends on access. And
Exactly.
if you assume, I think it might be a bit much to assume that people in um, maybe in our financial situations would actually have access. It's there's nothing to say that only the rich would be able to do this.
No, and it even appeared like in this movie that they weren't even saying that at all. It almost felt like it was just kind of a normal thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Just go down and see your geneticist. You'll be
Yeah.
good. So he'll get you squared away. No problems. Just like taking your kid to the pediatrician
Mhm.
or anything like that, or going and having like your a maternity checkup or something like that. Same thing. Just
Right.
part of the process now.
Well, I mean, and we're also talking about in vitro fertilization, and because the system doesn't work. At least in the setup that Gattaca is putting together, like it doesn't work as a post conception process. It's a pre-conception process. The conception is done through fertilization. It's not through sex.
Man, I hope that almost feels like Demolition Man time, man. Where they're doing it with those headsets and stuff like that. Psh, who doesn't want to do
it doesn't
with
mean that
headsets
people aren't
on?
having sex. Contraception exists even now.
That's the first thought
Long,
that came to my mind.
yeah, one of the most freeing things for society has been the separation of sex and conception.
Well, that's essentially what the '60s was, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, it's
That's because that's when birth control came
yeah.
into play.
Well, yeah, a lot of pushback, but sure.
Yeah, but that's kind of where the genesis of it was, wasn't it? Where you start seeing that kind of I can freely choose who I want to go have sex with, because that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to conceive every single time or whatever.
Right. Well, and the reduction in poverty is pretty much lines up directly with the availability of contraception. because the more kids you have, the harder the more you have to make to sustain a family, and those kids then become part of kind of either a welfare system or some type of system to allow society to create healthy citizens.
And I'm full on board with that. I mean, I that's one thing when me and my wife were talking about having kids, I always told her I never wanted to go over 3 or 4, because I never wanted to get to a point where I couldn't take care of them in a proper way.
Right.
And that's the way that, you kind of see that in society. I mean, if you can limit it, where you don't have to overuse resources.
That's the entire premise of the movie Idiocracy. All the
Right.
people decide that, we're not going to have kids that we can't support. And supposedly all the dumb people are like, screw it, we're going to have kids all over. And then they outweigh the smart people. I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah, but that's only and Idiocracy does go after that, but that's not how intelligence works.
No, obviously not.
But
That's just the way that Mike Judge works. I mean,
no, that's Mike Judge was making some really great satire there.
Exactly.
About Idiocracy, but I think that some people fixate on that point at the beginning of the movie, so that kind of makes sense. It's kind of the premise of the movie, how the world ended up in the way it did, but that point is provably wrong. So it's not, I hope nobody actually believes that's how intelligence works, that dumb people breeding creates more dumb people. That's not really how it works.
Yeah.
Clearly that's not how it works.
There's a lot of people that do believe that, unfortunately. And I think that's what Mike Judge was making fun of, was, hey, tongue in cheek, people think this is real.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow. But, thank goodness we can control. And, you look at that as possibly that was their way. Maybe that's how it started in this society. They never actually go into it on this one. How did we get here? I mean, it seemed like they were so shocked when somebody had a child for real.
Yeah.
I mean, it still happened, of course, but they were like, you're a godchild? You know what Uman says. By the way, Uman's so hot in this movie. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, she's great in it.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Anyway. But that's
that part where she has to play as if Jude Law is Ethan Hawke, and like in front of the detective, and it's like, just the range of emotions that she's putting on screen, I thought was great.
Yeah, she plays it great. She played that whole scene. That whole scene is just great.
Yeah.
And stuff. That's she you could definitely tell that she was coming into her own at that time. I don't know if I know this isn't her first movie, but I know it's one of her first.
97. I think she's done a bunch of movies before that. I thought she'd done most of isn't the Tarantino stuff like 95, 96?
Is it? I don't know.
I don't know. I could look it up, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's not important. I think she did great.
Kill Bill.
I think the whole cast did really well.
And then but there's Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget she's in Pulp Fiction. That's 94.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, but she's fantastic in this movie. She does such a wonderful job. Acting and just kind of being, it's like, it would be hard because they're playing, it seems like everybody kind of seemed like very strict in the way that they spoke and acted in a particular way. And I mean, just to even act that way would be pretty hard to do all the time. So I think this is the movie that her and Ethan met in, actually, too, and they got together in real life.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, no. I mean, they were married for, if I remember correctly, this is the one that where they got to like each other.
Okay.
So the chemistry that you see on there is very real.
It's their Green Lantern.
Their green
with Ryan Reynolds and
yes,
they got married shortly after.
Yeah, they did.
I'm just not up on celebrity marriages, so
I only know this one because my wife and I literally just watched Green Lantern, and she's like, "They're married." I'm like, "I don't think they were married in the film." She's like, "Well,
I think
that's the only way I know."
Just not too far after But
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Let me throw this out to you and see if it's kind of interesting to you. I was looking at some facts on this movie. Did you guys see that the budget for this movie was $32 million, but it only made 12?
That kind of doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's unfortunate, but that doesn't surprise me because I mean, sci-fi of this nature doesn't get people out in the box office. Like it's always a great intellectual movie and and stuff like that, but it's not. There's no lasers, there's no space battles, there's no rocket ships, there's no there's no technology. It's kind of a more low key, thought based sci-fi.
Thought-provoking sci-fi.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I had my oldest daughter Lily. She watched it with me because she likes these types of movies, and she was surprised on how she liked it. I was asking her at the very end. I didn't know if she was going to like it or not, and she said she liked it quite a bit. So, I mean, but she also liked. I asked her, and this is the point I wanted to make, if she thought it was slow, and maybe a little too slow for her. She's like, no, I never thought about that. I was so wrapped up in all the other stuff going around that it was interesting enough that I didn't feel like it was slow at all.
And I think the marketing for it in '97 probably wasn't that great. I mean, like, if you're trying to create, a film, a marketing campaign for this film, what do you put on it?
I don't know if you've seen the trailer. The trailer is actually pretty good for it. It's good enough that I actually remember it from back in the day.
Did you go to the movie? Did you actually go buy a ticket? Because I don't remember. I think I saw it when it came out on like VHS or something.
I was 9.
Yeah.
So
well,
it didn't matter to me.
I was on an LDS mission, so I was in Brazil. So
okay.
I couldn't have gone to a movie on that, but when I got back, I did.
I was 17 at the time. Like, this wasn't really on my radar to go and watch, right? It's like, it's not a thing that a teenager's like, oh, I want to go see Gattaca. This looks amazing. It's not. Like, some teenagers, sure, but not me at that time. And I don't.
I think I watched this more in the 2000s, early 2000s on DVD.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably for an older demographic, and it's not going to pull a whole bunch of numbers. And I bet the marketing for it wasn't that great.
I don't think it was that great, but even when I was reading it, and as you all probably know, that it's definitely picked up popularity through the years. Definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just when studios look at what these types of movies make back, that's how they decide whether or not to greenlight another movie that's similar to it. And
yes.
The failure in the box office of this type of movie means that it's going to be much rarer to get this type of movie later.
Unfortunately, that's true.
And also, I can understand why it's like 32 million, because man, the architecture, the places they had to film for this and stuff like that, like that brutalist architecture, like, where did they find these sets? They're amazing, and they're also just kind of crazy. And then also, like, it's kind of a weird mix of 40s and 50s style with a like all electric futuristic type situation, right?
Did you know that was dictated by the budget? When I was reading into it, a lot of the aesthetic choices were dictated by the budget, so they tried to get like these like very clean looking, like, weird places that they could build, which is one of the reasons why you see actual electric cars in there. They were saying he wanted to have like floating cars and all that stuff,
right?
But he couldn't.
Well, of course.
So they just made it sound electric, like with a weird.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know where that 32 million went to, because
catering. It's all catering. Actually, no, it went to that scene where they dump out the keyboard, or they're getting in that keyboard with the skin. That's where it went. That high def, nasty.
That's just a macro lens, right?
Oh, that was so gross. That is so gross. I religiously clean my keyboards after that because of that.
Yeah. Well, he cleans the keyboard and then he dumps stuff back on it, and you're like, no, what are you doing? We know why, but still.
No, all the money went to the set of Jude Law's apartment with all that, like, all that blood work stuff, and the refrigerator they put it in. That was an expensive refrigerator, dude.
And the
I don't even
incinerator
know. And the incinerator.
Yeah, I
for
don't,
that
I
for
don't
that
know.
30
I mean, like,
seconds.
yeah, like where they were filming must have cost them a lot, because, or maybe it's just having that many stars. I think Jude Law was a star. Ethan Hawke definitely was a star at that time.
He might have been in his own country, but I did read that was one of my other facts. Was this is his first movie in America?
Oh, well, maybe. I don't know how that 32 million got spent, but 12 million is pretty rough.
It was
As a
Ernest
return.
Borgnine. They spent
I mean,
all
yeah.
on Ernest Borgnine and what's the other guy? The Gore Vidal
Gore Vidal, yeah.
and Al Arkin. Those three sucked it all up, dude.
Tony Shalhoub,
I know. That was his Wings days too.
yeah.
He was on Wings at that time. Love Wings so much.
The cheaper Cheers.
Oh,
yeah.
it's more than that. Come on.
No, it's kind of you're
They
right.
had the
budget
Cordova,
cheers.
man.
It's
The
it's
Cordova.
budget Cheers.
Budget cheers.
I still loved it. I mean, I watch it then, of course, Cheers, but
You're allowed to love trash. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll just
Josh.
make fun of you for it.
I mean, if nobody has recognized that I'd loved on this podcast that I loved me some trash.
Well, hi,
Bring
this
it
is
on.
Josh. You have now, found him.
So something you forgot to mention when you were going over the director and what he's known for, and I'm surprised you didn't mention this one, was Lord of War with Nicolas
That's because
Cage.
I'd never seen it, so I couldn't speak to it.
Oh, that's sad.
Well,
I
put
know
that
that
on
I
the
know
list.
it's a Nicolas Cage movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Nicolas Cage and Jared Leto.
Yeah, that's the only reason I didn't bring it up because I couldn't speak to it. So
That's okay. We'll get it on the list and we'll force you to watch it somehow.
is it good?
It's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
good.
good.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
I got to be honest. I'm real picky about Nick Cage movies anymore because they're
No,
just so
this
hit and miss.
he did a really good job in this one. Like
Oh, I know,
it
it's
fit
like
him
I'm
really
gonna
well. And then Jared Leto played a douchebag, which is great. I'm all for that.
He does.
Okay.
Well.
Poor Jared Leto, I guess.
Yep.
Dude, he was
All
a
right.
douchebag in the Joker. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know people hate him for that, but
I don't hate him for his acting. I don't hate any actor for their
Oh,
acting.
you hate him for his music?
No, his music's there. No, I dislike, and
even
this is
know
the
the
hard.
man.
Well, and then that's the thing. Like, I can't really say I super dislike him because I don't know him personally. But
Well,
I don't
He
know
might
that I
be the
would
next
make the
Hitler.
choice to ever work with him based on the experiences of other cast members with regards to his method. And you can't see my air quotes, but I can make them.
Yeah.
With his method acting.
Yeah,
things
but I
like
think
the
that's
Joker.
getting a lot of impressions from tabloids and Reddit, which I don't think is the best mix for finding out
that's
if someone's
true,
actually a
yeah.
douchebag.
Yeah, potentially right.
I mean, we love as a collective society, we love passing around these stories of people and creating their entire somehow scaffolding their entire personality based on these stories, right? And it's like, could be true, but also could be just one incident.
Mhm.
Like that Tom Cruise incident back not too long ago, where he freaked out on everybody because of
Scientology?
COVID standards and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. And yeah, what do you know? We don't know. I think unless you know the actual person, judge them on their work. Let everything else be what it is. Like, no one's asking you to work with Jared Leto. So
I think
yeah,
they are.
it's not really a thing.
I'm
okay.
doing a
Sorry.
home movie with my little
Sorry, I
boy. I'm doing home videos, and Jared Leto has been asked to step into the role, and I don't know that I can. I'll accept him. He's not going to play my estranged uncle here.
Aw. God, I thought he was great in Blade Runner 2049.
He
Really?
was.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah, I like the way he played that character a lot.
I agree with you, Crit. I think he did great in 2049.
The pacing, the way, I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's direction, but the way he played that character, I thought was very compelling.
Very intense.
Yeah.
I would have to say of everything I've seen of Jared Leto, that is probably, if I had to pick one, that would be probably my favorite.
And I thought he
thing
was
of
really
his.
good in Dallas Buyers Club too. So
Well, I've not yet seen that one yet, but I've heard he's really good.
So I think I don't know. Who knows? I don't know the guy. He may be a terrible person, maybe the next Hitler. I kind of like their older stuff from his band, but who knows?
Gattaca.
Anyway, enough about Jared Leto.
Jared Leto edition.
He's not even in Gattaca. Why
I
is he
know.
on this podcast?
We went Lord of War. We went director, Lord of War,
Lord
Nicolas
of War,
Cage, Jared
okay.
Leto, and then
7 Ways to Bacon. We're almost there.
My goodness. I'm sure Kevin Bacon's in there somewhere. Anyways, but anybody else have anything else to share about Gattaca?
I think I've got everything.
Yeah, I got all my notes.
I'm good.
What's up, John? You good? All right. Then let's get to the ratings, guys. John, do you want to start out first with the ratings?
Yeah, I wouldn't watch this with my mom because I don't think I'll ever watch Gattaca again.
Really?
So, yeah, it just wasn't as intriguing to me. I mean, it was okay, and we discussed the points with regards of the focal point of the film not being something that I'm like, crap, we shouldn't do genetic testing on, and I appreciate what they're talking about with society, but other than that, the acting was okay, and I enjoyed it, but it's not something that I'm like, oh, I've got to go watch Gattaca again and soak it all up. So if I'll never watch it again, I'm not going to watch it with my mom.
This is one of the movies I'd probably watch every about 5 years or so, 5-10 years. I'm not watching it all the time too, but it's definitely something I want in my library. But anyways, okay, not watching with your mom, cool. And stuff. Thanks, John.
Yep.
Me, I'm actually going to give this movie a 9 out of 10 finger pricks. I really like this movie. And I would definitely buy this and have it. I'm shocked. I actually, when I came over to your house the other night, Crit, I went and when I was getting food from Walmart, I was looking for it.
Oh, okay.
I want to get it on Blu-ray, but I didn't have it. Not even in a collector's edition or anything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a niche one now. Like there's a lot of people that like to talk about it because it's a movie that creates conversations, but I'm not sure it's something that like everyone's stocking on their shelves. There's a ton of
the only
Blu-rays
person I
sitting
think
out
I
there.
might stock it is maybe Best Buy. They usually have a little bit
maybe.
bigger selection of movies than everybody else. But anyways,
Yeah.
I'd buy this movie definitely and stuff. I liked it a lot.
Cool.
Crit, what'd you think, man?
I'll do 4 out of 7 burnt roommates.
You got to get all that hair off. So of course, it's the best way to do it, man.
Yeah, just burn yourself. I like how he's just sitting in the burner, like with the thing on. I'm like, dude, you chose to burn yourself alive. You're feeling that. I'm sorry, you're not instantly dead. That you're going to be, that's a terrible way to go. They made it look so romantic. And I'm like, you're not doing anybody any favors by not showing how horrific that would be.
Oh, it'd be so horrific.
It'd be the worst thing ever.
It's one of
Plus,
the worst ways to die.
why would they have a start button on the inside? That makes
That's a
no
good
sense.
point.
Handicap accessibility.
We'll just put that up to we'll have to put up the rule of cool. It's somehow cool to have the incinerator button on the inside.
Let your kids play with it. You get to play it too. Just get on in and push the button and have lots of fiery fun.
Yeah. Anyway.
Awesome. Crit, tell us what our new subject for next month is, and let's go to your picks next week
first. Yeah,
and then we'll do your movies for next week.
Okay. Movies for next week.
Or
movies for next week.
Topic for next month. There we go.
Yep. Okay. First one, Beauty and the Beast. Second one, A Bug's Life. Third one, Over the Hedge.
I love Over the Hedge so much. Oh wait, no, I'm not thinking Over the Hedge. Over the Hedge was garbage. I'm thinking Over the Garden
I was
Wall.
gonna say that's not that great of a cartoon, dude.
No, I'm thinking Over the Garden Wall.
Oh, okay.
All right, Beauty and the Beast, A Bug's Life, and Over the Hedge.
I appreciate your theme with your picks.
Thank you.
I'm thinking. What was the second one?
Bug's
A
Life.
Bug's Life.
A Bug's Life.
I know what A Bug's Life is. Let's do that one.
That was the most obvious.
Yeah, that one's pretty obvious, but I really like it. Let's do A Bug's Life, Josh.
Okay.
All right. So
Sounds great to me.
Beauty and the Beast is Wall-E.
Solid.
Oh, yeah. I never thought of Wall-E as being that kind of a movie, but it is.
Yep.
Absolutely is.
Over the Hedge is Southland Tales.
I've never seen that one.
That would have been a fun one. And the one you picked, A Bug's Life, District 9.
Yep. I called it.
Oh, I get it now.
Okay.
I almost put that one on my list. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I
All
think
right. So
it's
we're watching
excellent.
District
It is a
9.
good one. I really enjoy that movie a lot.
It'll be interesting to see if everything holds. I remember it was such a groundbreaking, or at least, yeah, it really felt like a groundbreaking visual effects movie for the time. And I really want to see if everything holds up really well.
Just don't watch it around your
Because I haven't seen it in forever. So
John.
Yeah, I know. I've seen District 9 about 4 times.
I love District 9. I'm just joking.
So,
It has
okay.
so much F bombs in it. It's such a good sci-fi movie. Anyway.
Yep.
But it
But
definitely
it's set
fits
in a
into the
different
genre.
accent, so it sounds better. All
Yeah.
right. So next month's genre
Yeah.
is short films.
Okay. Not rom-com.
Short films, define that for me a little bit more. Like short.
So,
what is it?
Yeah, so short. So I think the definition of short films is like it's under an hour, I believe. I don't think it has to have a theatrical release, but yeah.
Okay. Short films. Let's do
I've got
it.
my home videos with Jared Leto.
Well, okay. Yeah. Did those get a
They didn't get a theatrical
Dude.
release.
Yeah.
I have a
So
So
wicked
it
good-
technically meets all the requirements that you have set out.
No, it didn't have a theatrical release though.
Oh, it has to have a theatrical release?
It's a motion picture that has a running time of 40 minutes or less. And
Define a theater.
usually for short subjects. Yeah, you have to find a theater. Yeah, so there's a lot of independent films and low budget or no budget type films and stuff like that, which I guess your stuff comes into play. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so
Josh,
if you don't,
mine's
you
going
also-
to be called Josh Goes to Taco Bell.
you're just gonna present
The
like
unknown
one of your
story.
one of your videos from the channel.
Yeah. No. I took this journey when I was a kid. We did a we were trying to be band. We were band. We were trying to become band presidents. Me and my best friend, and we took a journey to Taco Bell to get the endorsement of the manager at Taco Bell to be the president and vice president of our band
All right.
and stuff. The untold story that was just told. Anyway, but, okay. Short stories or short movies it is and
All
stuff.
right.
Well, everybody, thanks for the chat. This was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you all for being here. And we thank you all for listening out there to our podcast. If you've found us and you've listened this far through our podcast, thank you. We appreciate it. We ask you to subscribe and listen to our channel for all the more up and coming podcasts that we have. We sure do enjoy doing it for you guys. And to everybody out there listening, thank you for supporting our channel. And as always, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper from all of us here at Josh's House of Nerd. Have a good night.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness, please like and subscribe.